Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
The storm doesn't ask. It takes. It tests. It pushes everything to its limit. Some things are built different. Some things are built to last. Tested by the elements, proven by time, engineered for whatever comes next. Summertown Metals. Strength in every storm. Building dreams that last.
A&M Medical is Lawrence County's newest medical clinic, specializing in urgent and primary care. Practitioners Andrea Bain and Meredith Hutton bring years of experience and compassion to keep you and your family healthy. A&M Medical features a separate well waiting room to meet your needs. Visit today and ask about A&M's weight loss program and telemedicine services. That's A&M Medical, located at 2367 Highway 43 South in Leoma, Tennessee.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And I'd like to welcome everybody in here to this Wednesday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. I'm your host, Michael Marks, and we'll break right into it because we got a lot to get through today. We've got college football. We've even got some college basketball. We're going to talk playoff, Heisman picture, coaching carousel. I mean, we have a ton to get into, so we'll break right into it. We'll start with playoff projections because what better way to refresh our new week with new playoff projections. We'll go back and look at my old one real quick, and this was following 2 weeks ago's games. So I had Ohio State number 1, Miami as the Big Ten champ, Miami at number 2 as the ACC champ. I had Ole Miss 3rd as the SEC champion, Oregon 4th as the Big Ten runner-up, Texas Tech at 5 as the Big 12 champion, number 6 Texas A&M as the SEC runner-up, number 7 Indiana at large, number 8 BYU as the Big 12 runner-up, number 9 Georgia Tech as the ACC runner-up, number 10 Alabama at large, number 11 Oklahoma at large, and then number 12 Memphis as the highest-ranked Group of 5 champion. This week I've switched, first 4 out I had Notre Dame, Tennessee, Georgia, and Illinois, and the next 4 LSU, Missouri, Arizona State, and Virginia. That's all of those spots really have changed a lot. A bunch of stuff happened last weekend that really had an impact on the way we look at things as a whole. So the top 2 didn't change. Ohio State still number 1 is the Big Ten champ. Miami at number 2 is the ACC champ. I don't really see those changing throughout the year unless we have a major upset. I mean, Michigan will still probably beat Ohio State, but what impact does that really have now with Michigan having 2 losses now? It's not like that's going to change anything up in the necessarily the playoff picture. Miami at number 2 is the ACC champ. Again, I just don't think there's anybody in the ACC that can compete with them because all we talked about was Florida State was that chance, and now Florida State is 3-3. So ACC definitely a bit top heavy. There's probably, I'd say, 4 teams that could compete for that spot. I think they get 2 teams in. I think they get Miami and then either Georgia Tech, Louisville, or maybe a Virginia or something like that. But that ACC championship game could end up being pretty important for whether or not they get one or two teams in the playoff, kind of similar to the way it was last year. Third, I have a new SEC champ. I got Texas A&M as the SEC champ now. I mean, you look at last week. I had Ole Miss up there. They struggle against Washington State, who is not a very good team. And then you look at what Texas A&M did this week. Yeah, they had a home game too. Sure, it was at night and not 11:45, but they handled business against an SEC opponent and dominated them. I mean, it was a close battle through the first quarter, but most games are. So, props to Texas A&M, and I think they are. I don't think it's by far, but I do think that they are the top dog in the SEC as of now. This is usually the point in the season when Texas A&M starts losing. It feels like they go 8-4 every year, 8-5, 9-4, because that's just kind of how they've been, and it's been that way since they joined the SEC. They're 8-4 every year. They had a good 2012, but you look at last year, 8-5. The year before that, 7-6. Not a good last year of Jimbo. 5-7. Before that, 8-4. Before that, 9-1. Before that, 8-5 again. 9-4. 7-6. That was the last year of Kevin Sumlin. 8-5. 8-5. 8-5. 9-4. And 11-2, and that was Sumlin's first year, as is their first year in the SEC. So this is usually the point in the season when we look at Texas A&M to have a big fallout, but I don't see it with this team. I don't know if it's Mike Elko, if it's Marcel Reed, and Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver, Le'Veon Moss, those guys. If it's really the players, or if this is a coaching staff and a complete culture shift, because the way it looked, those are 8-5 Merchants, and this week I don't think that their luck changes. I think that they easily get to 7-1. They got Arkansas. Now this one actually is at Arkansas for the this has typically been a game played at AT&T Stadium in Arlington as the Southwest Classic. Now it's moving back to a home and home, and this isn't even a rivalry that's being kept in the new 9-game SEC schedule next year, so it could be the last time we see this one for a little bit. We'll talk about that one a little more on Friday, but I don't think that one's going to be much to worry about. But, I mean, down the stretch, A&M doesn't have it too easy. LSU is a formidable opponent. Those two have put on great games always, as well as Missouri. You got to play South Carolina at noon, and then Texas. So, I mean, there's still a route for 8-4 if they're looking for it, but I really do. I seriously think that this is a team that could go 10-2 or 11-1. I don't think we're going to have a perfect team in the SEC this year, because I think the only two undefeated teams left overall are, they're Ole Miss and Texas A&M. So, I don't see one of them going perfect. Now, there's a host of one-loss teams. There's the Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt, all kind of sitting there in the middle. Texas kind of mixed in there as well at 4-2. I mean, the SEC is tough this year. And I mean, not saying it isn't every year, but this year it just feels more. It's not like Alabama, and we'll take a look back maybe 15 years. It's not Alabama in the West and Florida in the East and everybody else just kind of fighting for it. I mean, it could be Ole Miss, it could be A&M, it could be Tennessee, it could be LSU. I mean, there's a bunch of teams that still have everything wide open in front of them, but that makes each week that much more important. Number 4, I have a new Big Ten runner-up, Indiana, and they very well could win the Big Ten. I watched them go on the road and handle Oregon. I mean, Fernando Mendoza felt so bad he gave him a touchdown, and then since the game goes too close, he went down and scored another one for his team. So I think this Indiana team it's got a different mindset than last year. Last year, it's like, hey, we're the new kids on the block, this, that, and the other. We're going to be fun. We put up a lot of points, but they didn't have a great defense. This year, their defense is winning them games single-handedly. Not to say their offense isn't putting up gaudy numbers on their own, but it's not like last year where they're putting up a ton of points and that's really all you're getting out of them. I mean, just go to look at their games this year. Okay, Old Dominion scored 14. Kennesaw State 9. Indiana State scoreless. Illinois 10. Iowa 15. And Oregon 20. I mean, they're not giving up a whole lot of points, and they're scoring a ton. I mean, they've scored 100 and what is that, 113 points in their 3 Big Ten games. I mean, 20 points is good enough to win you a Big Ten game, and they're doubling that almost. So props to Indiana. And, looking at the rest of their schedule, they got some tough games, so to speak. I mean, you got the I'd say Penn State's still pretty tough. I'm curious in 2 weeks what UCLA versus Indiana looks like. It could be a bloodbath. It might not be. But Indiana really has now that they've beaten Oregon, have 12-0, just staring them right in the face. And Coach Cignetti is not a coach that lets those get by him. So I'm really intrigued to see what Indiana can do later in the season. My Big 12 champ, still Texas Tech. They're still at number 5. They're good, and they're really good. I mean, their closest game in the Big 12 has been 24 points, and those felt like bloodbaths. I mean, if you watch those games. So I still think that Texas Tech is really good. Number 6, I got a new SEC runner-up. It's not Ole Miss. And it was A&M. It's not Ole Miss. It's Alabama. Alabama might be the scariest team in the SEC right now, just looking at what they've done as a whole. I think if you just look at their season and mentally take out that Florida State game, which I know is incredibly hard to do, this team won 73-0 against ULM, 38-14 against Wisconsin, 24-21 at Georgia, 30-14 at home against number 15 Vanderbilt, and 27-24 on the road at Missouri. So they've been tested, and they're passing. And it's not like they're putting up 60 points a game and this, that, and the other. It's not, those era Alabama teams anymore. This is a much more, I'd say, like a 2011 or 2012 style Alabama team, the kind that will punch you in the mouth. And they've done that by winning the game at the line of scrimmage. I mean, just total. They got outrushed by Missouri as a whole, but it just felt like they were running the ball much better. I don't really know how to explain it. They only had one more yard than Missouri in that game, but right now Alabama looks really hard to stop. Ty Simpson looks like one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. 71% completion percentage, still only 1 interception to 16 touchdowns. I mean, the 12 sacks is a bit concerning through 6 games, but I don't think 2 sacks in a game is going to hurt you too much. The status of Jam Miller for this weekend is a bit of a thought, but right now I have Alabama at number 6. Number 7, Ole Miss. I didn't want to drop them too much because they didn't lose. They still won, but they're dropping from 3 to 7 in my playoff rankings because if you're going to take a 3-point win at home against Washington State in a game where you had an opportunity to put up some points, style points, look good, get everybody feeling confident, and they kind of fell on it. So I have Ole Miss at 7. Number 8, I got Oregon. I still think Oregon's pretty good. How good, we don't know. Looking at the rest of their schedule, I think we'll get a chance to figure out how good they are. They don't have a Penn State left on their schedule, but they do have a USC. They have a Washington. I think Minnesota is pretty good. They're in a 3-game or a 2-game stretch right now of Rutgers and Wisconsin. If they can escape those, unscathed, I think that they can probably make some noise down the stretch, especially with USC and Washington, those two being some very good teams out west. At number 9, I got the Big 12 runner-up, and right now I don't know who it's going to be. I have BYU and Utah. We got the Holy War Saturday, so we'll get to figure that out. But really, I do think that the winner of that game will probably be your second-best team in the Big 12. We saw Arizona State take a huge fall to Utah. BYU refuses to lose right now, but one of them is going to have to lose on Saturday night. If Utah loses, they're probably out of the playoff hunt with 2 losses. BYU can really lock up a good spot with a win on Saturday, but it's going to come down to the young quarterbacks. Is it Dan Pierre or is it Bear Bachmeier? That's going to be a good one. Number 10, I got Georgia. They keep winning. Talking about it, this Georgia team could be 3-3 right now. We look at them; they could have easily lost to Tennessee, Alabama, and Auburn, but they didn't. They only lost one of those games, and that's why I still have them at number 10. They find ways to win. It may not be pretty, it may not look the best, but they're winning ball games, and that's what you got to do in the playoff. You just got to win. It doesn't have to look pretty. Number 11, I got my ACC runner-up. I got Georgia Tech. I really do think that Georgia Tech is probably your second-best team in the ACC. Just because of the way the schedules line up, there's not a whole lot of good on good in the ACC, it feels like. Because look at Georgia Tech's remaining schedule in conference. Duke, Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, and Pitt. I see 2 tests in there, maybe Duke and maybe Pitt. They could lose both of those games, but right now I see Georgia Tech as the team to beat. Virginia also is still undefeated in conference, and they've got not a terrible schedule down the stretch with they got Washington State this week, North Carolina, Cal, Wake Forest, Duke, and Virginia Tech. So that last spot for the ACC, it's going to come down to SMU's still perfect in conference play. They're 4-2 overall, but still undefeated in conference play. So the ACC is wide open as well. And then my highest ranked Group of 5 champ, it was Memphis. I now have USF. You go on the road and win by almost 30 points. I think it was a 27-point win. You get some respect from that one. My first 4 out, I have Tennessee, Notre Dame, LSU. And then if BYU loses, I would have BYU. If not, I would have Virginia. And then my next 4 out, Oklahoma, USC, Memphis. There is a scenario where there are a 2 at-large Group of 5 teams. I don't know how likely, but it is still very likely. And then Vanderbilt if Utah loses, or if Utah wins. So let's look at some of the midweek games. We had some games last night because we're in the best part of the season where we get Tuesday night action. We'll get some Conference USA in there, and we had 3 games last night, and I mean 2 of the 3 were really, really good. We'll break down the one that wasn't as close, and it was a kind of a shocker. FIU, the Golden Panthers, taking down Western Kentucky 25-7 or 25-6, and it was a lot of work on the ground for FIU. That's kind of how they've identified themselves this year, and it worked against what was thought of to be the best team in your conference in Western Kentucky. But I mean, Keon Owens, 22 carries, 195 yards, and a touchdown. That'll do. Maverick McIver struggled tremendously, 20 of 31, 159, 159 yards through the air, and 3 interceptions. He struggled a bit as of late. Still putting up some great numbers, but if we just look at he's already got 5 interceptions this year. He only had 7 last year at Abilene Christian and 5 the year before that, so he hasn't been a huge turnover problem. But it's starting to rear its ugly head with this one. But hey, just an all-around great game for FIU. That defense really put a lock on, and when the passing game wasn't working for Western Kentucky, they didn't allow them to get the run game going either. Only 116 yards on the ground, and really didn't even try to get the ground game going. But a balanced attack really helped Florida International to that one, so a big win for the Panthers there. I believe we'll stay in the same conference. South Alabama and Arkansas State. That was a interesting game. It was a fairly good game, 15-14. It was 14-3 heading into the 4th, and the Fighting Butch Joneses got it done. It helps having former 5-star quarterback Jalen Rayner. He's had an interesting path, but he seems to be doing well now in Arkansas State. South Alabama had a lead and just let it fall away from them late, and that's kind of the difference right now with South Alabama. They're 1-5 on the year, 1-6 now. And their games have all been close. The 2-point loss to Tulane didn't look great against Auburn, but a few point loss against North Texas, overtime loss to Troy. I mean, they're this close to being a 1 or 2 loss team, and they just haven't been able to get it done. But yeah, props to Arkansas State, 2-1 now in the Sun Belt. So maybe a team that can make some noise. Liberty and New Mexico State. Funny that somehow this is a conference game, considering that, New Mexico State is in New Mexico and Liberty is in Virginia. Nonetheless, Flames pick up a big win, 30-27. Taking a look at the box score, it was it was a bit of an ugly game. We'll put it that way. Ethan Vasco, quarterback for Liberty, didn't look great. 20 of 30, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, but got enough done on the ground with Evan Dickens. Logan Fife looked pretty good for New Mexico. 20 of 37, 242, 2 touchdowns. Kadarius Callaway had a touchdown and 84 yards on the ground for New Mexico. Just came up a little short. I mean, going back and looking at it, Liberty got up 20-6 in this one, and New Mexico State did all they could to fight back, but some early, not playing well early really did end up hurting them down the stretch, and they had a field goal opportunity to try it, missed by about missed probably 30 yards to the left. But all in all, that was a great game. Liberty up to 2-1 in Conference USA. Let's take a look at the Heisman, because after this past week, we know nothing. We thought it was Dante Moore. Well, if you look at what he did against Indiana, I don't want that being my Heisman winner. Is it Fernando Mendoza right now? Is it Ty Simpson? I mean, I would say Ahmad Hardy, but he just got shut down too. Who is your Heisman right now? And that's kind of the age-old question right now. Who's the Heisman winner? Because you look at these national leaders in passing yards, and they're not really on a team that's going to make enough noise that they need that they're going to get the Heisman. Sawyer Robertson already over 2,000 yards. Josh Hoover at 1,900. Maverick McGiver getting close to that. But the first guy that kind of catches my eyes is Jaden Maiava. So right now, USC 5-1. They got a big game on Saturday night. That game could have a big impact on the Heisman. The junior out of Hawaii, 1,852 passing yards. This through 6 games, so a little over 300 passing yards a game. 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's got the number 1 QBR in the country. He's efficient, folks. Right now, this season, 72% completion percentage. That's going to win you a lot of ball games. And he sort of has a dual threat ability. He's not going to run a whole lot, but had 4 rushing touchdowns already this year, 4 last year. So, 17 total touchdowns. That'll work. And they also have a good running back, some good receivers. I mean, Mekhi Lemon's second in the country in receiving yards. So I could say Jaden Maiava is a name in there. I think for Fernando Mendoza definitely threw his name in there with that game against Oregon last week. I think Dante Moore's probably still 3 or 4. And then my last spot right now, even though his stats on the season aren't crazy, I'm going to go with Trinidad Chambliss. He's just outside the top 5 in passing yards, but this dude has played, 4 games? Yeah, 4 games now, and he's over 1,200 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean, he's 10th in the SEC in passing yards in 4 games. I mean, there are starters that aren't putting up those numbers. I mean, you look, and Cutter Boley's not even, is 16th, and he has 600 passing yards. That guy's doubled that in half as many games, it feels like. But right now, I would have Mendoza probably number 1, Maiava 2, Chambliss 3, and Dante Moore 4. Ahmad Hardy's just outside, Wayman Jordan just on the outside. I'd say Justice Haynes, but with that injury, not exactly sure what he's going to be looking like. And this is a year, man, where really anybody could come out of nowhere and win the Heisman. It is so top to bottom, so tough to really. Who's good and who's not good. There is more parity in college football this year than ever, and that's what's made this so much fun. And let's hop over to some basketball. Actually, we'll stay in football. We'll talk coaching carousel. So we've had some coaches fired this year. Virginia Tech fired Brent Pry. Oklahoma State got rid of Mike Gundy. UCLA said be gone to Deshaun Foster. Sam Pittman out the door. James Franklin out the door. Who's next, and who are some guys that are going to fill in those spaces? Well, there are reports coming out of Florida that this weekend will probably be Billy Napier's last game, win or lose. It's a home game against Mississippi State, so they're hoping for a win. Loss, he probably won't make it back to the locker room. So Billy Napier is one of those early on the list that could be out the door next. Hugh Freeze at Auburn, I think that seat's getting real hot, especially after all the drama that's come through following that Georgia game. I mean, you watch the first half of that game and you think maybe Auburn has figured it out. Yeah, they looked a little rough against Oklahoma, and they looked a little rough against this, that, and the other. But it looks like they figured it out and just completely just fell apart in the second half. And if you watched Hugh Freeze's halftime interview with ESPN, that was a defeated man. He pretty much just saying to the sideline reporter that, man, I hope we can get a call sometime. So you're just telling your team, this Auburn team in my mind has the mentality of a team that they think that the officials won't let them win a game, and so they why bother? They're not going to let us win. I mean, you realize that Auburn was this close to having a 17-0 lead against Georgia, and just let it fall away. And they had an entire second half to come back and try to play better. And they had 51 yards in the second half. Just an all-around bad game from Auburn, and tough break for them. They're 0-3 in conference, sitting at the bottom, tied with Kentucky and Mississippi State and Arkansas. And it's a rough place down there because Auburn had really high hopes coming into the year. I had some fairly high expectations for them. I thought they would finally figure it out. I thought Jackson Arnold, maybe mixing him with Hugh Freeze would yield better results than him with than him in Oklahoma with Brent Venables, more of a defensive guy. And I don't think he's gotten worse, but there definitely hasn't been much improvement in the passing game scheme of things. Another name that's I don't know if he'll be fired, but he will be coaching somewhere else next year. Mark Stoops at Kentucky. He made Kentucky look pretty dang good. I will say that. His time at Kentucky has been really well. It's gone really well, much better than I would say really anybody would think for a Kentucky football coach. He's been there since 2013. 69-76 head coaching record at Kentucky. I mean, he's almost 500, and if he would have left 2 years ago, he would still be above 500. I mean, you look from we'll go 2017 to 2021. They had 2 10-win seasons, a couple 8-win seasons in there. I mean, they got second in the SEC. Three times they were second in their division in the conference. They've won the Citrus Bowl twice, won the Belk Bowl, won the Gator Bowl. I mean, they've looked really good, but they finished 11th in the AP poll one of those years, 15 the next. But since then, I mean, since 2022, they had high hopes going into that year. As the last year, Will Levis 7-6, and the 2023 they had high hopes, 7-6. 2024 last year they had no hope and went 4-8, and already 2-3 this year. It's been rough for Mark Stoops, and again 6-11 in the last 2 years. I mean, you take that off his total, and he's 63-65. I mean, it looks much better. But I think he'll be at a different spot next year, and we'll get to where that is in a minute. Wisconsin, I think Luke Fickell, it's only time before he's out the door there at Wisconsin. It has not been a good time for Coach Fickell. I mean, we saw what he did at Cincinnati, but looking at the past Cincinnati head coaches, I don't know if it's necessarily easy to win there, but they've had a great run of head coaches just over the last, 15, 20 years. Let me pull up the list real quick of their past head football coaches. So, right now they're in the Scott Satterfield era. There was after Luke Fickell left, their interim coach, I believe it was a bowl game or a playoff game. But Luke Fickell did a really good job there. Tommy Tuberville was there for a little bit before Luke Fickell. They bounced around with a couple of guys, had Butch Jones for a couple of years, Brian Kelly for a couple of years. I mean, they've had a ton of good coaches come through really since the early 2000s with Mark D'Antonio. He was at Cincinnati before he ended up at Michigan State, and look where Michigan State is now. So, they've had a good run of coaches, and look at what those coaches did. Mark D'Antonio, he made his record at Cincinnati wasn't great, but he made a program out of Michigan State for about a decade and a half. Brian Kelly, I mean, he's the winningest active college football head coach. I mean, he went 34-6 in his 3 seasons there. That is insane. Butch Jones, I mean, he wasn't great at Cincinnati, and really he had a couple good years at Tennessee. But look at Derek Dooley and tell me that that's not a hard job to do, make Tennessee look good. Tommy Tuberville, this was after his days at Auburn and Texas Tech and Ole Miss. This was pre-Senator era, but he was all right there. And then they bring Luke Fickell in 2017. He turns things around. They looked really good. They made the playoff. They were the first group of 5 team to make the playoff, and he heads to Wisconsin. It doesn't work out. And then at North Carolina, there were reports last week that they were trying to find an out of Bill Belichick's contract. And then a couple hours later, they were like, no, that's not true. That didn't happen. blah, blah, blah. I still think he's probably gone at the end of the year. I always believe in giving coaches 2 years, but when it goes this bad, I really don't think that there's much of an excuse for, to keep him around much longer. And I don't think they will. I really don't see him sticking around for too much longer. But that could, open up a bunch of interesting jobs. So we'll jump into it first with Virginia Tech. I think Mark Stoops. I think that is a great fit for him. It's a program that has more resources than Kentucky. And they will focus on football there. They are good at baseball, they're good at basketball, women's basketball, but they're going to focus on football there at Virginia Tech. Kentucky, you're second in resources. You're not going to get as much as the men's basketball team. They may even put a little more, effort, so to speak, not necessarily dollars because it's not comparable, but they may even put a little more effort into the women's basketball program at Kentucky than they do at football. We saw a couple years ago Mark Stoops just asking for a little more help, and he hasn't gotten it. I think either he's fired at the end of the year or he's going to walk. I mean, we saw him almost take the Texas A&M job instead of Mike Elko. I don't see why the Virginia Tech job wouldn't be a bad job for him because he's still got a couple good years coaching left. He's not, incredibly old or anything like that. He's still a relatively young guy at 58. So Mike Gundy out at Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State is looking for a young, bit of a raw product at head coach, but someone that they can keep around like they did Gundy for forever. And they want somebody that knows that area, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, that area really well. And I think it comes down to two guys, G.J. Kinney, the head coach at Texas State, or Eric Morris, the head coach at North Texas. These are two of the best Group of 5 programs in the country, and they're pretty much right in your back door. Obviously, Texas State is in Texas. It's just right down the road pretty much. I think it's a great pickup. They have been really, really good since they've been really since Kenny's got there in 2023. He's 31-15 there, combined with his head coaching record in Incarnate Word, and he's been really, really good. I don't know if he would necessarily go there. I mean, he did play at Texas, spent some time with Tulsa as well. Before he went to the NFL. So I don't know if he would necessarily go to Oklahoma State, but obviously he's going to be able to be paid there more. He'll have better resources. And I think that it would be a much better job for him, especially at such a young guy, only 36 years old. And then another guy that is just as young, a couple of years older, Eric Morris, the head coach at North Texas, 39 years old, played at Texas Tech. So again, from the area, been around. He was with Texas Tech from 2013 to 2017 in the offensive coordinator role, along with wide receivers. So that and those Texas Tech teams, that was Patrick Mahomes. That was putting up a ton of points. So he was drawing up that offense. He's a guy that can put up a ton of points. I mean, look at what North Texas has done. I mean, he's doing what he's done with North Texas. He's been there since 2023 and has a 40-33 record combined with Incarnate Word, funny enough. North Texas is putting up a crap load of points this year with a freshman quarterback, a young guy. So, he can put up a lot of points, and I think it would be an interesting job for him, especially considering all, his connections with Texas Tech. So he knows the Big 12 very well. I think it would be a good first big head coaching job for Eric Morris. Now out west, Deshaun Foster. Obviously, Chip Kelly kind of left and put them in a bad spot. But who do you go for? Obviously, I think you look for, well, who's already in the building. I think you look with your head honcho there, just because of what UCLA has looked like the last 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure it looks pretty obvious that Deshaun Foster did not care about that team one bit. And Tim Skipper has made them look like one of the best teams in the country over the past 2 weeks. Just blowing out Michigan State in a year when every game is close, it feels like. They got the win over Penn State, so they look really good. I think Tim Skipper's a place you look. I think Alex Golish is a place to look if you want offense. T.J. Kinney could also be in that conversation. But I think a great candidate for that job would be Jedd Fisch. He has been really good has been really good at Washington. Got Arizona back after the dark years of Kevin Sumlin. Why not get UCLA out of the dark times? You may not stick around there very long. It kind of seems like to me you're more of a Buzz Williams of college coaching. You're a good coach. Your team's always going to be competitive, but you get a team out of a dark time or what could be a dark time, and you bring them back up, and then you go somewhere else. I think that UCLA could be his next job, and he's just rebuilding the entire West Coast. So yeah, I think Jedd Fisch would be an option, but then that would get a little complicated with the quarterback room. Does Damon Williams transfer with you? At that point, what happens with Nico? So it may be better to look elsewhere other than Jedd Fisch for that exact reason. Let's head to Arkansas, because this one is my answer's changed over the weekend. Before that, I was all Rhett Lashley. I think Rhett Lashley is the guy for the job. Now I'm thinking Bobby Petrino might be a better answer short term, just in the simple fact that, well, he's been the Arkansas head coach before. You heard them say that 300 times on TV Saturday, and he did a good job when he was there, and they looked competitive Saturday. I mean, they brought out a fullback who, typical formations. That's not something you do. Lashley was the quarterback at Arkansas slightly before the time of Petrino, so it's not like they have any overlap other than he was a GA after graduation, so he was under Petrino for a year. I think Lashley's the guy for the job, but what I don't know is if he will leave SMU yet. He's guided SMU through the transition from the American to the ACC very smoothly. I mean, they almost won the conference their first year, and they're still undefeated in conference play this year despite 2 tough losses to some in-state teams. I think he may be your guy long-term, but I don't hate looking at Bobby Petrino right now, just because he knows these guys. You keep him around for a couple of years because he is 64. He's getting a little up there in age, and I don't think he's a great long-term option. But I think you get him for a couple of years, help him build the team up a little bit, and then you kind of hand the job off to Rhett Lashley in the future. And now the one that everybody's talking about, Penn State. One of the better coaching jobs in the country. I mean, this job has been filled for most of everyone's lives. James Franklin's been there since 2014, it seems. James Franklin was there from 2014. Bill O'Brien 2012 and 2013. Tom Bradley was an interim in 2011, but it was Joe Paterno from 1966 to 2011. This is not a job that opens up a lot. They've had football since 1887, and they have had not counting interims, 16 head coaches. This next one will be their 17th. There's not a name that wouldn't fit here. I know they're trying to go after Marcus Freeman. I know Matt Rule is a hot candidate. I think he would be a great fit. I think Eli Drinkwitz is someone you give an option to, because what you want at Penn State, because they're in a dark time right now, you want somebody who, one, has a good offense. I think Matt Rule and Eli Drinkwitz do that. Someone that's not going to handcuff their quarterback, similar to what Franklin did, because I don't think Aller was really ever given an opportunity to shine, and then at that point his confidence was so low that there was no chance for him. Or Brian Kelly. I think this is a great job for Brian Kelly. I know the seats, it's not necessarily getting hot at LSU, but they're wanting a little more. And so, when that seat starts getting a little warm and something else opens up and looks good, it wouldn't surprise me if Kelly ended up taking that job. Kurt Cignetti's name's being thrown around. I don't think he would leave Indiana. He has a much better team right now than Penn State. Why would he leave and want to rebuild something else and let someone take back over Indiana? Because Indiana also has a crap load of money put into football now that makes them extremely dangerous. So now we'll hop on over to college basketball. Folks, the season starts in like 2.5 weeks. We'll be playing games before you know it. It feels like it's so far away, but we're getting to that point of the basketball season where some Saturdays are going to be a little bit mixed. Teams are starting to kick off or tip off. There'll be some exhibitions later this month, but early next month, man, they're hitting the ground running. So we'll take a look first at the men's top 25. So we'll start at 25. We got North Carolina, the Tar Heels. They finished the last season unranked. They made the tournament, lost in the first 4 with a 23-14 record. Seat's a little hot for Hubert Davis. You get that number by your name because of your name, and he probably has one last season to prove it. Wisconsin last season finished number 16 in the AP poll, went 27-10, made it to the second round. They ran into a good team in that second round and were really close to winning it. I think Wisconsin's a great team. I don't know. The Big Ten's going to be really tough this year, but Wisconsin should be pretty good. Creighton at 23rd. This is going to be their first year without Ryan Kalkbrenner in 5 years. They finished the season unranked. They lost in the second round of the tournament at a 25-11 record. Every year that Ryan Kalkbrenner was there, their defense got better and better and was letting up. Before him, they were in the 73-74 range. Now they're in the 67-68 range of points given up per game. And we know how much Creighton likes to score, so that's enough for them to easily win a game. I get they lost a lot, but Michigan State at 22. I get it. There are years where everybody thinks Tom Izzo is going to have a great team, and they preseason them in the top 5, and then they are 4-8 or 8-4, we'll say, by conference time in late December, early January. I mean, his team made it to the Elite Eight last year and was 30-7, and they are, I feel, being extremely disrespected. Now you lose the guys like the Jace Richardsons, but I mean, Tom Izzo is always going to have talent. That's just the way it is. And once we get to March, you'll see that. His teams are never near their best in November, December. Watch a Michigan State game. Watch their first game of the season, and then watch their last win of the season, if it's the national championship, whatever. Because you look at two completely different teams. Gonzaga at 21. They finished the year at 23, 26-9 record. Made it to the round of 32. They were one of those typical good teams that was an 8 or 9 seed and got stuck playing one of those 1 seeds. I mean, if you got Baylor got stuck playing Duke, you had I believe it was UConn playing Florida. I don't think it was Gonzaga that played Auburn, so they must have played Houston. So tough one. Auburn at 20 last year made it to the Final Four. They finished 4th in the AP poll with a 32-6 record, and if the poll came out 2 weeks ago, they would probably be somewhere in the 2-6 range, maybe back around 8 or 9, because they did lose a lot from last year. They still had their coach. Now Bruce Pearl is out the door into a administrative role at Auburn, and now his son Stephen is taking over. I don't know how it'll go, because Steve, this is his first head coaching job. He's been an assistant with his dad at Auburn for about 8 years now, but how much is that really going to help? He's kind of been the spearhead of their defense the past couple of years, and barring the way they guarded Dalton Connect, he's done a really good job. So we'll see. But Auburn, maybe a bit disrespected, maybe even overrated. Who knows? Kansas, they were another typically good team that had a rough year last year. Entered the tournament as a 7 seed, but took that loss to Arkansas. They finished unranked, 21-13. Bill Self is having health concerns. I think we're probably on the last leg of Kansas in the Bill Self era. They'll hire somebody else, and he'll be a great head coach, and they'll be good again. But I think we're starting to see probably a page turn to a new book there in Lawrence. 18th ranked Tennessee. They were 5th in the country, made it to the Elite Eight, were 30-9. One of the most fun teams to watch in college basketball last year. I mean, their defense was really good. When their offense got going, they were fun to watch. It was a fun time in Knoxville last year. Number 17, Illinois, they finished unranked, lost in the second round of the tournament, but had a 22-13 record, and they had a ton of injury issues last year and inconsistency issues because of those injuries and sicknesses. If Brad Underwood can get everything working right, he's got both the Ivisic brothers, he got Stojakovic from Cal. That team's going to be really good. I like how he builds up his teams with European players, because they come over to the United States, and while there are some rules that are a little bit differently, and sometimes they get caught doing some things that are a bit that are against college basketball rules and not over there in Europe, they're really good, and it's a fun team to watch. Number 16, Iowa State. They finished the year at 17 last year. They were another team that got bit with the injury bug. Lost in the second round of the tournament, went 25-10. Were one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country at one point earlier in the year. Then the injuries started rolling, and TJ Otzelberger can only do so much with the team. Another team that I think is underrated, along with Tennessee and Auburn, Alabama. They finished 6th in the poll. They were in the Elite Eight, 28-9. Tennessee, Auburn, and Alabama have been the 3 best teams in the SEC. You could throw Kentucky in there, but they've had some rough years over the last, we'll say, 5 or 6 years. I don't think any of them have finished outside the top 15 in the AP poll, outside the 20. I know Tennessee was ranked the entire time I was in school there from 2021 until I graduated this past season, or this past spring. I think those teams are being extremely disrespected. And look at what the SEC did last year. They put like 13 teams in the tournament. There were 3 teams in the SEC that did not make the NCAA tournament. That is insane. While they all didn't go too far, you had, 2 in the Final Four with Auburn and Florida. You had, I think, 2 more in the Elite Eight with Alabama and Tennessee. And they're being extremely disrespected. Arkansas at number 14, I think they're a little low. I feel like we need to take the glasses off Kentucky and put them on Arkansas, because this is what Arkansas is now. They're going to be Kentucky until Calipari leaves or retires or whatever his next move is. Made the Sweet 16 last year, had an incredible run. Went 22-14 because you look up, I believe at one point they were 0-7 in the SEC last year. They could not win a conference game. And Boogie Fland goes down, and then somewhere along the way they find it. And they look really good down the stretch. They make a run at the Sweet 16. Could have made it, probably should have made it to the Elite Eight. Kind of ran that one away against Michigan State, or Texas Tech, pardon. And that overtime thriller, that was a great game. Now you got me reliving all these tournament games from last year that were so good. Arizona at number 13. They finished the year of 15. They made the Sweet 16. They had a good year, but you lose Caleb Love. You lose some guys like that. It's going to be tough to bounce back, but Tommy Lloyd's a great coach. One of the best, I think one of the top 5 or 6 coaches in the country. And if he could have some tournament success, I feel like you would start to see more appreciation for him, because halfway through last year, Arizona was not a tournament team, and it was going to be tough for them to make it. And then they went on a run all the way to the Sweet 16, and nobody would have thought that was happening, but they ran into Duke, and that's what happens when you run into Duke. You don't go any further. UCLA, they finished out unranked last year, got beat in the round of 32 by the aforementioned Tennessee Volunteers. Went 23-11. I'm a little confused because they were kind of in the same spot as Arizona was last year, as Arkansas was last year. Midway through the season, they were not a tournament team whatsoever. I mean, you look at some of the interviews from Mick Cronin where he's talking about his guys don't care, they're not good, this, that, and the other. But they went to the portal. They went to the portal pretty hard, actually. Just bringing in some guys like Anthony Peoples Jr. You bring in Xavier Booker from Michigan State, who was a 5-star out of high school. You bring in Donovan Dent from New Mexico, who is only a 3-star out of high school, but a 5-star transfer. So he's going to be really good for them. But you lose Sky Clark from last year. That was a really good team. How much do they? How much do they really have? That is the real question. I think Mick Cronin's a great coach. He's a great defensive coach. That team's going to have to put up some points this year, though, if they want to contend in the Big Ten. Louisville at number 11. Last year ranked 21st. Got blown out in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Really screwed up my bracket. What can you say, though? They were a lot better than they had been for a while, because Louisville basketball was really good under Rick Pitino, and he gets fired with all the controversy. And then they go through a bit of a dark ages. You look at what happened from Pitino to Pat Kelsey. You have Chris Mack for 4 years. He does a pretty good job. Chris Mack had them looking really good. I think it was 2019. They had a really good team. 2020. And then Kenny Payne comes in and goes 12-52. He won 12 games the entire time he was the coach. He was there for 2 full seasons and won 12 games. Pat Kelsey in 1 year goes 27-8. talking about coaches that have done a great job, let's talk about Pat Kelsey. I mean, I wasn't sure about the hire initially. He had done really good at College of Charleston. They put up a ton of points. He had even looked really good at Winthrop before that. But this is his first big boy job. And, I remember just as a Tennessee fan watching Tennessee go up to Louisville and, beat them by 20. And I thought, well, same old Louisville. They had a good record at the time. I think they may have had some injury problems, but and then they started playing better through the year, and then just got drummed by Creighton in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I think they'll be a good regular season team. Pat Kelsey's got to kind of earn my respect a little bit in the NCAA tournament because he hasn't had much success there. Overall in his career, 0-5 in the NCAA tournament. So we'll see how they move from there. Into the top 10, Texas Tech at number 10. They were a really good team last year. They lost some pieces, though. This was a Texas Tech team that lost some pieces from the past couple of years. But I don't think they're in as bad of a spot, so to speak, just because of what they did last year. I mean, you remember that run they made in the tournament, and very well could have been one of the one or two teams left. But they did a really good job in terms of who they picked up. They got a good bit of transfers. Josiah Mosley, Lawan Watts, Donovan Atwell, guys like that you're getting from other big schools, I think can help you. You lose some pieces, but I think you'll be back. I mean, you were 28-9 and made it to the Elite Eight. You'll be back. Kentucky at number 9 is Kentucky. They're always going to get good recruits, and I actually think Mark Pope's a great head coach. You look at their record from last year, and it's not great. 24-12, made it the Sweet 16, got beat by Tennessee. They looked all right, but they lost a ton. I mean, you look at that roster from last year, and just everybody's gone. Let me pull it up real quick and just go over some of the names that are going to be missing from that Kentucky team. One moment, but you got to take Oweh back. He's going to be one of your best players in the country. But you lose guys like Lamont Butler, the transfer, Jackson Robinson, Kobe Brea, Andrew Carr, Brandon Garrison, Ansley Almanor, Amari Williams, Kirk Creesa. I mean, those are all guys, and Creesa got hurt, but those are all guys that played a ton. And you lose most of them. But they're going to put together a good recruiting class. You lose Brea, Butler, Carr, Creesa, Travis Perry transferred to Ole Miss, Kirk Creesa transferred to Cincinnati, Jackson Robinson, Amari Williams. But you got Denzel Aberdeen, the crafty guard from Florida, Mo Diabate, the forward from Bama, Jelon Lowe, that really talented guard out of Pitt. He's going to put up a lot of points. Jaden Quaintance, you got your defensive presence inside. You got a bunch of guys. It's how do we match them with some of these young guys? Because you got the number 1 center in the country in Malachi Moreno. He's 7 feet tall and he's going to be big for you. Jasper Johnson, a hometown kid. Most of these kids are. So I think Kentucky's going to be an interesting team to watch this year. I don't know if they're top 10 good, but they're definitely going to be a team to watch. BYU at number 8. They got the number 1 recruit in the country. We'll put it like that because, I mean, they got AJ DeBansa, and he is going to be huge for them, for Kevin Young. It's going to be his second year with the team. They were good last year. We don't exactly know what they're going to look like this year. When your best player, projected best player is a freshman, you don't know what to predict from them. Michigan at number 7, they're going to be really good. I think they've done a great job over the last couple of years. They made the Sweet 16, went 27-10, and were one of the best teams in the Big Ten. I think they'll remain in that spot. Duke at number 6. Got Cam Boozer. You're fresh off of Final Four. You went 35-4 last year. You finished 3rd in the AP poll. I mean, you lost a lot from last year, but this is still going to be a really good Duke team. John Shires proved he's a great coach. So, give me Duke in that one. I think Duke's going to be an outstanding team this year. I think they're a bit underrated. I think that they'll probably be another Final Four team this year because I'm really high on Cam Boozer. St. John's. They were a bit disappointing in the tournament, to say the least. I believe they were a 2 seed, and then lost to a good Arkansas team in the second round, but they were a Final Four team. I had them in my Elite Eight. There's another team that busted my bracket. They finished 11th in the poll, went 31-5. I think they'll be pretty good this year. As long as Pitino is there, they're going to be good. And he's become somewhat of a bit of a New York, has a bit of a cult following, so to speak. I mean, he was making appearances on Jimmy Fallon last year in white suits. I mean, St. John's is cool again. I mean, it's back like Chris Mullins is there. UConn at number 4. I mean, they brought in some transfers. They brought in some decent recruits. This team went 24-11 and was completely in a spiral last year. Lucky they made the tournament and almost beat the eventual national champions in the second round. But I mean, they didn't show much until then. Florida at number 3. They're your reigning national champs. I'm fine with that ranking. I think that's a good spot for them. They lost a lot, but they're bringing in a lot. Ton of good recruits. Boogie Fland, they got the kid from Princeton, the transfer guard, so they're going to be a crafty team. I don't know how Houston isn't number 1. They went 35-5 last year. They were the national runner-up, and they're bringing everybody back and more. They went to the portal and they went to the recruiting and got a bunch of top guys. Houston is going to be the best team in the country this year. They will probably win the national championship, and Kelvin Sampson deserves one. Number 1, Purdue. Who would have thunk it? Lost in the Sweet 16 last year to Houston on a last-second play. Finished 14th in the poll, went 24-12. But you're bringing back all those guys: Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman, Fletcher Lawyer, Matt Painter still your head coach. There's probably going to be some 7-2 or 7-3 kid coming off your bench, or maybe even starting for you. So Purdue looks like they'll be a pretty good team this year. Teams that were in the top 25 that had dropped out that were in the final AP poll last year that dropped out this year. Maryland at number 9. They finished at 9. They looked really good. But you lose your head coach, you lose a lot of your players. It's tough to bounce back from that. Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Ole Miss still has a lot of talent. They lost a bunch of players from last year, but you still got Chris Beard, and he's an incredibly good coach. Texas A&M. Buzz Williams is gone, but it's time to bring in a new era there. Can they do it? I don't know. Clemson at 22. They were probably the second best team in the ACC for most of the year. I think we're probably about to start to see a bit of a comeback to the earth from Brad Brownell. He's done a great job coaching there, but I think that they'll probably take a bit of a step back this year, as is number 24 and number 25, St. Mary's in Memphis. You lose the quality of players that Memphis lost last year. It's going to be tough to bounce back, as is for St. Mary's. So that will do it for this Wednesday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. We'll be back here Friday around the same time, maybe 11:30, because we got a bunch of games to talk about. This is going to be a huge weekend of college football. We may even have some other college sports news to talk about. So for Michael Marks, this has been the Mark My Words College Sports Show. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.